I thought retiring in paradise meant freedom, peace, maybe even love again after losing Margaret. Instead, I became a prisoner, not of bars, but of visa stamps, empty promises, and a woman who saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat. This is how I lost everything in Manila. I was sitting alone in the hotel lobby in Makati when she appeared. 3 months I'd been in the Philippines by then. 3 months of eating alone, walking alone, sleeping in a room that echoed with silence. The air conditioning hummed above me. I was struggling with my phone, trying to figure out why the SIM card I'd bought at the airport wouldn't work. My fingers felt too thick for the tiny slot. I was about to give up when I heard her voice. "Excuse me, sir. Do you need help with that?" I looked up. She was standing beside the reception desk, maybe 30 years old, wearing the hotel uniform with her name tag pinned neatly to her chest. Janessa. Dark eyes, warm smile, the kind of smile that made you feel like you mattered. "I've been fighting with this thing for 20 minutes, I said, holding up the phone like evidence of my incompetence. "I think I'm too old for technology," she laughed. Not the polite laugh you give to tourists, but something genuine. "May I?" she asked, reaching for my phone. Her fingers were quick, confident. She had the SIM card in and the phone rebooting in under a minute. "There, you just need to restart it. Sometimes they lock when you switch carriers." "You just saved me from throwing this into Manila Bay," I said. She smiled again. "You've been to the bay already?" "Not yet. Still figuring out what to do with myself here." She tilted her head, curious. "You're here alone?" Something about the way she asked made me answer honestly. "Yeah, alone, retired. Thought I'd try something different." "Different from what?" she asked. I should have said something simple. Instead, I told her the truth. From waking up in a house in Canada that feels like a museum. From winter. From being a widower who doesn't know what to do with his days anymore. Her expression softened. "I'm sorry. How long has it been?" 4 years. Her name was Margaret. Janessa nodded slowly. "My father passed 2 years ago. I understand that kind of quiet." And just like that, we weren't stranger and hotel employee anymore. We were two people who'd both lost something. She glanced at the clock on the wall. "My shift ends in 15 minutes. Would you like coffee? I can show you a place nearby that isn't tourist prices." I hesitated for maybe half a second. "I'd like that." We sat in a small cafe 2 blocks from the hotel, the kind of place with plastic chairs and a menu in Tagalog. She ordered for both of us, something sweet and iced that I'd never heard of. "So why Manila?" she asked. "Why not Boracay or Cebu? Most retirees go to the islands." I didn't want a resort. I wanted real life. I sold my house in Townsville, took what was left after the kids got their share, and bought a one-way ticket. Figured I'd rent a condo, live cheap, see what happens. "And what's happened so far?" she asked. "Not much. I walk a lot, eat street food, try not to think about how far I am from everything I used to know." She stirred her coffee slowly. "Do you regret it?" I thought about that. "I don't know yet." She smiled. "That's honest." We talked for 2 hours. She told me about growing up in Tondo, about her family, her 3 younger siblings she helped raise after her father died. She told me she'd worked at the hotel for 6 years, sent money home every week, dreamed of going back to school someday. I told her about Margaret, about how cancer took her slowly, about how my kids moved on faster than I did. "They have their own lives," I said. "I don't blame them, but it's strange being the one left behind." "You're not left behind," Janessa said quietly. "You're just starting something new." When she said that, something inside me cracked open. I hadn't felt hope in a long time. She checked her phone. "I should go. I have to catch the jeepney before traffic gets bad." I didn't want her to leave. "Can I see you again?" She wrote her number on my receipt. Her handwriting was looped and careful. "Text me, Nolan. I'd like to show you the real Manila." I walked back to my hotel room, feeling 20 years younger. I didn't think about the age gap. I didn't think about how fast this was moving. I just thought about her smile and the way she said my name. 2 weeks later, I couldn't remember what my life was like before Janessa. She called me every morning. Good morning, Nolan. Did you sleep well? Her voice made waking up easier. She took me to places I'd never have found on my own. Hidden restaurants in Quiapo, where the adobo tasted like someone's grandmother made it. Street markets in Divisoria, where she haggled in rapid Tagalog and then translated for me, laughing. I told her you're my special friend and she should give us a discount. Did it work? I asked. Always works, she said, holding up a bag of mangoes. She taught me Tagalog phrases. Mahal kita, she said one evening as we walked along Roxas Boulevard. What does that mean? I asked. It means I value you, she said, squeezing my hand. I didn't know then that it meant I love you. I didn't know a lot of things then. We started spending every evening together. She'd finish her shift at the hotel and text me, I'm free. Are you free? I was always free. We'd eat dinner, walk, talk until late. She told me about her dreams. I want to open a small business someday. Maybe a sari-sari store or a cafe. Something my family can help run. That sounds good, I said. You'd be great at that. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We were sitting on a bench overlooking Manila Bay, watching the sunset turn the polluted sky into shades of orange and pink. You make me feel safe, Nolan, she said softly. Age doesn't matter when the heart is right. I kissed her forehead. In that moment, I believed I'd come to the Philippines for a reason. Not just to escape, not just to run from grief. I'd come here to find her. I started paying for everything. Dinners, her grab rides home. New shoes when she mentioned hers were worn out. It felt natural. She was giving me her time, her attention, her warmth. I was giving her security. That's how I saw it. That's how I wanted to see it. One night she stayed over at my condo. We didn't sleep together, not then, but she curled up beside me on the couch and fell asleep watching a movie. I stayed awake, listening to her breathe, feeling her weight against me. I thought, this is what I've been missing. This is what it feels like to not be alone. I didn't notice she'd stopped talking about her job. I didn't ask why she always needed cash instead of bank transfers. I didn't ask a lot of things because I didn't want the answers to ruin what I'd found. It started small. We were eating lunch at a carinderia near her place when her phone rang. She answered in Tagalog, her voice rising, stressed. When she hung up, her eyes were wet. What's wrong? I asked. She wiped her face quickly. It's my Tito Rodel, my uncle. He's sick, needs medicine. The hospital won't release him until we pay. How much? I asked. She shook her head. I can't ask you for that, Nolan. You've already done so much. How much, Janessa? 15,000 pesos. It's too much. I'll figure it out. I did the math in my head. About 350 Canadian dollars. I pulled out my wallet. Here, take it. She stared at the bills in my hand. Nolan, no, I can't. You can. I want to help. She started crying. Real tears. I'm so embarrassed. I didn't want you to see me like this. I held her hand. Family takes care of family, right? You told me that. She nodded, taking the money, clutching it like a lifeline. I'll pay you back when my salary comes. Don't worry about it, I said. She kissed me then, hard and desperate. Thank you. You don't know what this means. A week later, it was her cousin's tuition, 5,000 pesos. Then her mother's emergency dental work, 10,000. Then her brother needed help with rent, 8,000. Each time, she cried. Each time, she promised to pay me back. Each time, I said, don't worry, I want to help. I believed I was being a good man. I believed this was what love looked like. Then I saw Tito Rodel. Janessa and I were eating at a restaurant in Quezon City. She'd picked the place, said it was her favorite. I was halfway through my sisig when I saw him, a man in his 50s, laughing loudly at a table near the door, drinking Red Horse beer with a group of friends. He looked healthy, energetic, not like someone who'd just been in the hospital. Janessa, I said slowly, is that your Tito Rodel? She followed my gaze. Her face didn't change. Oh, yeah, that's him. I thought he was sick. He was. He got better. She said it so casually, Like it was obvious. I felt something twist in my stomach. You said he was in the hospital last week. He was. They released him after we paid. He's fine now. She smiled at me. Thanks to you? I wanted to ask more. I wanted to ask why a man who'd been too sick to leave the hospital was now drinking beer and laughing like nothing had happened. But I didn't, because I didn't want to be that guy, the suspicious foreigner, the one who doesn't understand Filipino culture. That night, alone in my condo, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through the transactions. 15,000, 5,000, 10,000, 8,000. Another 12,000 I'd forgotten about. 83,000 pesos total. In 6 weeks, I closed the app. I didn't want to think about it. My tourist visa was about to expire. 59 days. That's what you get when you fly into the Philippines. I had 3 days left. Janessa noticed before I did. Nolan, when does your visa end? She asked one morning. I checked the stamp in my passport. Friday. She sat up in bed, suddenly serious. You need to extend it, or apply for something longer. I was thinking I'd just do another tourist extension. Go to immigration, pay the fee. She shook her head. That's only good for another month. Then you have to do it again. And again. It's expensive. And they start asking questions if you do it too many times. What do you suggest? I asked. She smiled. Apply for an SRRV, Special Resident Retiree Visa. It's permanent. You deposit money in a Philippine bank. They give you residency. Then we can really plan a future together. The way she said, future made my chest warm. How much do I need to deposit? 20,000 US dollars. But you can withdraw it later if you need to. It's just a deposit. I thought about it. 20,000 was a lot. But if it meant staying here legally, staying with her, it made sense. Okay, let's do it. She kissed me. I'll help you. We'll go to the immigration office together. But the process was slow. Every time we went to the Bureau of Immigration, they needed more documents. Proof of pension, bank statements, medical clearance, police clearance from Canada, which took weeks to arrive. It's always like this, Janessa said, frustrated. They make it so complicated. Meanwhile, my tourist visa expired. I was officially overstaying. 12 days, then 15. Janessa kept saying it was fine, that everyone did it, that we'd fix it once the SRRV went through. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped. I couldn't leave the country now without paying overstay fines. I was stuck. And then her brother showed up. Kuya Ben. He was 38, wearing a basketball jersey and a gold chain. He sat across from me at a coffee shop in Makati, Janessa beside him, both looking serious. Nolan, I need your help, Ben said. His English was rough but clear. My sorry store. I'm going to lose it. The landlord wants 50,000 pesos or I'm out. I looked at Janessa. She was staring at her hands. Can't you get a loan? I asked Ben. He shook his head. No bank will give me one. I have bad credit. But if I lose the store, my family has no income. My kids, my wife, they depend on it. Janessa reached for my hand. Nolan, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Ben is family. If you love me, you'll help my family. That's what it means to be with a Filipina. There it was. If you love me. I felt the weight of it. The ultimatum. I pulled out my phone and transferred 50,000 pesos to Ben's account. He shook my hand, smiling. You're a good man, Nolan. I won't forget this. 2 days later, I tried to talk to Janessa about my visa stress, about how I couldn't sleep, about how every time I saw a police officer, I wondered if they'd check my passport. She got cold, distant. Maybe you don't really want to be here, Nolan. What? Of course I do. Then why are you complaining? I'm trying to help you. My family's trying to help you. But all you do is stress. I'm not complaining. I'm just scared. She stood up from the couch. Maybe you don't really love me. Maybe this is all too much for you. Janessa, don't say that. She walked to the door. I need space, Nolan. I'll call you when I'm ready. She didn't call for 3 days. When she finally did, she acted like nothing had happened. I miss you, she said. Can I come over? I said yes. I always said yes. Janessa introduced me to Mr. Santos on a Tuesday afternoon. We met him at a small office in Ermita, the kind of place with no sign on the door, just a room number. He was in his 50s, wearing a barong, smiling too much. "Nolan, good to meet you," he said, shaking my hand. "Janessa tells me you're having visa trouble. The SRRV process is taking forever," I said. "I'm already overstaying. I'm worried." He nodded sympathetically. "The Bureau of Immigration is very slow, very bureaucratic. But I have connections there. I can fast-track your application and clear your overstay penalties." "No problem. How much would that cost?" I asked. He glanced at Janessa, then back at me. 120,000 pesos, under the table, you understand. I felt my stomach drop. "That's a lot of money." "It's the cost of fixing things quickly," he said. "Otherwise, you could wait 6 months, maybe a year, and your overstay fines keep adding up every day." Janessa touched my arm. "Nolan, do you trust me?" I looked at her. Her eyes were soft, pleading. "Yes." "Then trust Mr. Santos. He's helped my friends before. He's good." I transferred the money that afternoon. Mr. Santos promised results in 2 weeks. "I'll call you," he said. "Don't worry." 2 weeks passed. No call. I texted him. No response. I called. Voicemail. After 3 weeks, I went to the Bureau of Immigration myself. I stood in line for 2 hours, finally reaching a clerk who checked my name in the system. "Sir, there's no SRRV application under your name," she said. "What? There has to be." I paid a lawyer to file it. She checked again. "No record, sir. You need to start the application yourself." I felt the floor tilt under me. I tried calling Mr. Santos again. Nothing. I went back to his office. The door was locked. A sign said, "Closed for renovation." When I confronted Janessa, she cried. We were in my condo, standing in the kitchen. I just told her what the immigration clerk said. "Janessa, there's no application. Santos took my money and disappeared." "I didn't know," she sobbed. "I swear, Nolan, I didn't know he would do that. You recommended him, because I thought he was legitimate. He scammed both of us." She covered her face with her hands. "This is breaking my heart. You think I wanted this to happen?" I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe this was just bad luck. But that night, after she left, I sat on my balcony and did the math. 83,000 to her family, 50,000 to Ben, 120,000 to Santos. I'd given away 253,000 pesos in 3 months, over 8,000 Canadian dollars. I was living on a shrinking savings account in a country where I was illegal, and the woman I thought loved me hadn't touched me in 2 weeks. I met Dave by accident. I was sitting in a cafe in Makati, drinking bad coffee, trying to figure out my next move. He was at the next table, reading a Canadian newspaper. I noticed the maple leaf on the front page. "You're from Canada?" I asked. He looked up. Mid-60s, gray beard, tired eyes. "Toronto. You?" "Townsville." He smiled. "Long way from home." "Yeah." He gestured to the empty chair at his table. "Join me. It's rare to meet another Kanak here." We talked for an hour. He'd been in the Philippines for 15 years. Married to a Filipina, owned a small business in Quezon City. He seemed grounded, real. At some point, I mentioned Janessa, just her name. His expression changed. "How old is she?" he asked. 30. "How long have you known her?" 4 months. He nodded slowly. "Let me guess. Young Filipina. Family always needs money. Moved in fast. Talks about the future a lot." My chest tightened. "Yeah." He sighed. "Brother, I've seen this story 100 times. You're being played." I felt my face get hot. "You don't know her. She loves me." Dave didn't argue. He just said, quietly, "Check her Facebook. Check who she's with when she's not with you." I wanted to tell him to mind his own business. I wanted to walk out, but I didn't, because part of me already knew. That night, alone in my condo, I opened Facebook. I found Janessa's profile. It was public. I scrolled through her photos. Most of them were selfies, group shots with friends, pictures of food, normal stuff. Then I found the album from 2 months ago, beach photos. She was at a resort in Batangas. White sand, blue water, and in every photo, she was with a guy, Filipino, maybe 35, muscular, tattoos on his arms. They were holding hands, kissing in one shot. The comments underneath were in Tagalog, but I recognized one word that kept appearing, mahal, the word she'd taught me. I value you, she'd said, but I looked it up that night. Mahal means love. I love you. The photos were dated the same weekend she told me she was visiting her sick mother in the province. I stared at my phone for an hour. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like something was crushing it from the inside. When Janessa texted me that night, "Miss you, Nolan," I stared at the message for 10 minutes. I knew I should confront her. I knew I should block her number and walk away. But I replied, "Miss you too," because I wasn't ready. Not yet. The knock on my door came on a Saturday morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, a woman stood in the hallway, older, maybe late 40s, wearing a simple dress and sandals. "Are you Nolan?" she asked. "Yes. Who are you?" "I'm Corazon, Janessa's aunt." My stomach dropped. I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked into my condo slowly, looking around like she was memorizing it. She sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I don't want to, but it's not right what's happening." I sat across from her. "What's happening?" She took a breath. "Janessa has a boyfriend, a live-in boyfriend, in Quezon City. They've been together for 3 years. The room tilted. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Corazon reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She opened the photo gallery and handed it to me. I saw Janessa, holding a little girl, maybe 2 years old, smiling, standing next to a man, the same man from the beach photos. They looked like a family. "That's her daughter," Corazon said quietly. "She's 2.5. The man is her boyfriend, Carlo. He has a gambling problem. Debts. Janessa's been using your money to pay them off." I couldn't breathe. "The family emergencies?" I managed to ask. "Some were real. Most weren't. Tito Rodell wasn't that sick. Ben didn't lose his store. She made up stories because Carlo needed money." I handed the phone back to her. My hands were numb. "Why are you telling me this?" Corazon looked at me with something like pity. "Because you seem like a good man. And this is wrong. You're not the first foreigner she's done this to. There was an Australian man last year, a British man before that. She finds lonely men, and she takes." I told her to stop, but she doesn't listen. She stood up. "I'm sorry, Nolan. Please, stop giving her money. She won't change." After she left, I sat on my balcony. I didn't move for hours. The sun set. The city lights came on. Manila glowed beneath me, indifferent and beautiful. I cried for the first time since Margaret's funeral, not because I lost money, not because I was stupid, but because I'd believed her, because I'd wanted so badly to be loved again that I let myself become a fool. My phone buzzed. A text from Janessa. "Nolan, I need 20,000 pesos. Emergency. My mother's in the hospital. Please." I stared at the message. I didn't reply. I stopped answering Janessa's calls. She tried everything. First, guilt. "Nolan, why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong?" Then anger. "You're just like all the other foreigners. You use us, and then you leave." Then sweetness. "I love you, Nolan. Please, don't believe whatever lies people are telling you." I deleted every message, but I couldn't delete the situation I was in. My visa was a disaster. I'd been overstaying for 43 days. The fines were adding up. 500 pesos per day. Over 21,000 pesos total. I couldn't afford it. Not after giving Janessa everything. I couldn't work legally. I couldn't leave the country without paying the fines first. I was trapped. I contacted the Canadian embassy. They were sympathetic but useless. You need to settle your immigration status with the Bureau of Immigration before we can assist with repatriation, the consular officer said over the phone. Can't you just get me on a plane? I asked. Not without clearing your overstay, sir. Philippine immigration won't let you leave. I spent my days in my condo, watching Manila from my window, the jeepneys crawling through traffic, the street vendors, the endless noise and life happening below me. I thought about how I got here, how loneliness made me blind, how I traded my dignity for the fantasy of being wanted. I thought about Margaret, how she'd be heartbroken seeing what I became. I didn't blame Janessa anymore. I blamed myself. I'm the one who ignored every red flag. I'm the one who chose belief over truth. Tito Rodel wasn't sick, but I gave her the money anyway. Ben's store didn't matter, but I paid. Mr. Santos was obviously a scam, but I trusted her. At every turn, I had a choice. And I chose wrong. One evening, my son called from Calgary. We hadn't spoken in 2 months. Dad, are you okay? You sound different. I'm fine, I lied. How's Manila? It's good. Hot. Busy. There was a pause. Do you need anything? I thought about telling him everything. About Janessa. About the money. About how I was trapped in a country that had promised me freedom, but I didn't. No, I'm okay. Just adjusting. Okay. Well, call me if you need anything. I mean it. After we hung up, I sat in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the city, thinking about how I'd become a prisoner in paradise. No bars, no guards, just visa stamps and empty promises, and a woman who saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat. I sold my furniture on Facebook Marketplace. A couch, a bed, a small dining table. I got maybe 30,000 pesos total. It wasn't enough. I called my son. I need to borrow money, I said. There was a long silence. How much? 40,000 pesos. About 1,200 Canadian. Dad, what's going on? I told him part of it. Not everything. Just that I'd made some bad financial decisions and needed to clear my visa fine so I could come home. He didn't ask questions. He just said, I'll send it today. The money came through the next morning. I went to the Bureau of Immigration with every document I had. I paid the 63,000 pesos in fines. The clerk stamped my passport with a cold efficiency that felt like judgment. You can leave the country now, she said, but you're banned from returning for 6 months. I'm not coming back, I said. She didn't care. I booked a flight to Vancouver, 4 days away, the cheapest one I could find. I packed my suitcase. 1 suitcase. That's all I had left. Everything I owned in the Philippines fit into 1 bag. On my last night in Manila, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but I did. Nolan, it's Janessa. I heard you're leaving. I just want you to know I did care about you. You were different. I'm sorry it ended this way. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her how much she destroyed, to ask if any of it was real. But I didn't. I deleted the message. I sat on the balcony one last time. The city stretched out before me, a million lights in the dark. Somewhere down there, Janessa was probably already texting another lonely foreigner, saying the same thing she said to me. And he'd believe her, because he'd want to, just like I did. I thought about Margaret, about how she used to say, Nolan, you're too trusting. You think everyone's good. She was right. I didn't come to Manila to find love. I came here, running from grief, and I ran straight into someone who saw that wound and used it. But I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. I lost my money. I lost my dignity. But I was still breathing, and maybe that was enough. The flight to Vancouver left at 6 in the morning. I got to Ninoy Aquino International Airport 3 hours early. I sat in the departure area, watching people, families saying goodbye, OFWs heading back to work abroad, and retirees, Western men with Filipina girlfriends half their age. They were everywhere, holding hands, taking selfies, laughing. I wondered how many of them would end up like me, how many already had. A man next to me, maybe 70, American accent, was FaceTiming his Filipina partner. "I'll send money next week. Baby, don't worry." I looked away. I didn't hate the Philippines. It wasn't the country's fault. It was a beautiful place. The food, the people, the chaos, the warmth. But it was never paradise for me. It was an escape. And I used it the same way Janessa used me. I wanted a fantasy. She wanted money. We both got exactly what we deserved. The plane took off into a gray sky. I watched Manila disappear into the clouds. Smoke from cooking fires, the sprawl of buildings, the brown rivers cutting through the city. All of it fading. Somewhere down there, Janessa was waking up. Maybe she was with Carlo. Maybe she was with their daughter. Maybe she'd already moved on to the next foreigner, the next hotel lobby, the next lonely man who just wanted to be seen. I didn't hate her. I just didn't think about her anymore. When the plane landed in Vancouver, I turned on my phone. My son had texted, "Landed yet? I'm at arrivals." I grabbed my suitcase from the baggage claim. One suitcase, 68 years of life reduced to one bag. My son was waiting outside. He didn't ask questions. He just hugged me, tight, like he was holding me together. "You okay, Dad?" "I will be," I said. That night, I stayed in his guest room. Small bed, clean sheets, quiet. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything. How I'd sold my house in Townsville. How I'd flown to Manila with so much hope. How I'd met Janessa in that hotel lobby and thought, maybe this is my second chance. I thought about the money I'd given her. Over 300,000 pesos, almost 10,000 Canadian dollars. Money I'd saved for years. Money I'd never get back. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing I'd let it happen. I saw the red flags. Tito Rodell drinking beer when he was supposed to be sick. Janessa always needing cash. Her phone calls in Tagalog that she'd never translate. Mr. Santos in his shady office. I saw all of it. And I ignored it because I wanted to believe. So I pulled out my laptop and I started writing. Not because I wanted to tell my story. Not because I thought it mattered. But because I needed to remember. I needed to remember that loneliness is dangerous. That love without self-respect is just surrender. That sometimes the prison we're trapped in is the one we build ourselves. I wrote about the hotel lobby, about her smile, about Manila Bay at sunset, about the moment I knew I was being used and chose to look away. I wrote until the sun came up. I'm 68 years old. I lost almost everything in Manila. My savings, my pride, my belief that I could start over. But I'm still here. I'm still breathing. And I'll never let myself disappear like that again. Because the truth is, I didn't lose myself in the Philippines. I lost myself the moment I stopped believing I was worth more than what I could give someone else. And that's a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life, no matter how much it costs to learn it.